Good evening. You're listening live to the Extreme Movie Show. I am your host, Rob, broadcasting to you from the Pinos Palace, just west of Orlando, Florida. I have from the great Midwest tonight. One RDV joining me tonight. And normally, what would be our Miami Vice Season 1 review, or Miami Nights stream, as we like to call it. But we put things on pause when we decided to do a tribute stream to an actor or somebody that was important to us growing up. And tonight, of course, we're talking about Chuck Norris. And RDV, I want to take a moment here and talk about the impact of Chuck Norris on me personally. Just a little bit. I don't really talk too much personal stuff on here because, it is what it is. We're not chasing dollars like that. It's a hobby and we have fun at. We like to have fun, and that's the important thing. And we're a little different because we don't hate stream, right? But Chuck Norris, let me tell you, as a kid growing up, I think one of the most defining things for me is when I look back at my father, who's passed a long time. Back in the 70s when I was a child, in the teenagers and 80s, I was only allowed to watch certain things. They had to be in the room. Movies were different. We've talked about all this. And I have a family member or two that's in the entertainment industry in various roles and capacities over our lifetimes. So I feel like I have a slight view on it. And I got to tell you, the couple of people that I know that this person I'm thinking of in particular has met, the one I always wanted to meet was Chuck Norris, because as a young kid watching movies with my dad, we'd watch the old Westerns. We'd watch all the stuff. He was an older father when he had us. So we kind of had like two generations ago kind of thing, right? I mean, we watched Humphrey Bogart, all that. And when we started the Extreme Movie Show, I had actually started it with the idea of it going a certain direction, and it's morphed over the years. So you and the young 20-something Professor Pixel represent the 90s and the aughts, respectively. But I got to tell you, the whole thing that you had said maybe about a year ago on one of our streams, I think really rings true. And that is, you just wish there was more positive type movies out there, not necessarily Christian or religious, but just wholesome. And we don't get into the political stuff unless it's pertinent to the movie or whatever like that. But for me, one of my first very, interested action stars, I just liked him, was Chuck Norris, and my dad too. And one of the first ones I remember, even though I saw stuff like it, was this whole kung fu craze in the 70s and 80s. But man, Good Guys Wear Black, Breaker, all these movies that we've reviewed. That's what we anchored the Extreme Movie Show on, because we said if worse comes to worse, we'll be a Chuck Norris stream, because his movies are fun, they're very positive, they embody everything that it means to be American, and Chuck Norris would be the first one to tell you that that's how his movies are. And his magnum opus to me, of course, would be Lone Wolf McQuade, but we'll talk about some of that stuff here too. But a little bit sad, I usually don't mark out a lot over people that I have never met or known, because I think it's that death of a dream of what they represent to you, right? Like a divorce or a relationship breakup. And it's just sad, because I just thought, I've seen a lot of celebrities die. Shatner's out there and I love him, but I don't know if I would like him if I met him in person. Same thing with John Carpenter and some older guys, a lot of that too. But this kind of hit me a little bit, and a bunch of my inner circle was tweeting me, late night and everything too. And I was actually in a business meeting, and the gentleman I was with, he said, "Oh man, Lone Wolf McQuade died." I went, "Damn it! I knew he was in the hospital. I was hoping he was getting better." But yeah, I mean, Chuck Norris, wow, what a great guy. I've watched several of his films this weekend, just have him on there too. And we never really have a goal for these other than to talk about things we appreciate, remember, and any potential influence they may have had on how we view things too. So I'm curious, it obviously may not be the same or much at all, but what kind of an impact has Chuck Norris meant for you with watching film, especially action films? Because I know you're a big fan of those.
Well, when it comes to like funerals like this, or not funerals, but I mean like actors that are very popular like this, Chuck Norris is very well over. I don't think there are any people who with a rational mind who dislike Chuck Norris, whether they like his movies or not. They still they get a kick out of the memes, And I'm trying to make a pun there with a kick, but
yeah.
So I was kind of dreading this too, because I was like, oh, he's 86, he's gonna be up there. He's one of the big heavy action stars in the 80s, Missing in Action, Delta Force, all those movies, Octagon, Lone Wolf McQuade, and just like Good Guys Wear Black. This guy was like he fought against Chuck, not Chuck Lee, but Chuck Norris versus Bruce Lee, and like, so I was like, man, because I was thinking about this, like, who's gonna go soon? Because we got Chuck Norris, who's 86, but we also have
Shatner, I think, just turned 95.
We have Stallone up there in age,
Yes.
And like, I'm
Arnold's
just
not getting any younger. He's up almost to 80.
Arnold, you said all the big action stars, all the just in the 80s they're old and they could go anytime, I mean, obviously you go in your 60s, you know, but still, it's like. So I was thinking, like, oh man, we probably not going to get much more out of this. But Chuck Norris, reading up on him from like he is an undefeated world champion, you know, kickboxing champion or karate
The best
champion,
of the best.
That's the best. And he retired being undefeated, and then he got in and he did some more movies and stuff for what was it Canon Films.
Mm-hmm.
They're all
Cannon was he was one of Cannon's early major stars.
Yep,
They really
yep.
did their stuff that we talked about in the 80s.
Yeah, so I mean, we covered it. So I've never really watched this stuff until we started this channel, and I started reviewing it and watching with you.
Is that right?
So, honestly, I've seen him. I'm trying to think. Right, the first movie I ever saw him was Sidekicks and Top Dog.
Top Dog.
In the 90s. Like, and you know, I've seen Delta Force before too. You know, like I've seen that. You know, Missing in Action, but like I never saw the early stuff because I never really dawned on me. Hey, I wonder if he was making movies in the 70s. You know, let's go look at that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Breaker. It's always hold a special place in my heart. I'm going door to door and just beating up people in the junkyard and stuff. It's great. You know, and just fantastic. But the more you look at his life, you know, you look at his office he had in the 70s, the guy, he always rocking the mustache, you know, the shades, you know.
He dabbled in the mullet foo.
Oh my gosh, yes. And then how he lived his life, you know, and apparently he had a code that he lived his life by. I'm trying to figure what it was. He had a 10-thing code. His code of honor, rules to live by, and he stuck to them. You know, a lot of people could probably learn from these. Number one is I will devote myself to the maximum of my potential and always. You know, never give a half-ass. I will forget the mistakes of the past and press on to greater achievements. Keep moving forward. 3 is I'll continue to work at developing love, happiness, and loyalty in my family. You know, family's important. I know I'll look for the good in all people and make them feel worthwhile. You know, if I don't have nothing good to say about a person, I'll say nothing. And he did that. People would always try to get him to talk bad about others, and he wouldn't do it.
I never recall him getting into a gotcha.
No. Yeah, you know, never did that. And I said I'll always be enthusiastic about the success of others as I am about my own. Something a lot of people don't do. People get 100%. Jealous. People, Number 7, I will maintain an attitude of open-mindedness. You know, 8 is I will maintain respect for those in authority and demonstrate this respect at all times, which he was. He was a patriot. You know, I think he was also a Marine, wasn't he?
I think it was Air Force,
Army, something like that.
He was in the Korean War.
Yeah. He says, I'll here's number 9. I'll always remain loyal to my God, my country, my family, and my friends. Which is a really, as he went on his life, he was a Christian. He lived his life as a Christian, and a lot of people didn't like the fact that he was conservative, because the party changed on him. So he went towards the conservative life because they're the ones that were the patriots when and of course, Variety if you those are on Twitter, Variety was saying like, well, he'll always be overshadowed by his politics. And then that person got chewed out in their replies. But his last one, it says, I will remain highly goal oriented throughout my life because that positive attitude helps my family, my country, and myself.
Yeah, one of the things with him in these 10 things, he you're when I say you're a 90s kid, I say you're in the 90s, right? I'm an 80s guy, and Professor Pixel's in the aughts, right? So it's interesting because the internet's been around maybe a generation now in some form or another.
2001, I think, or 2000.
Mid 2000s, like 2004, 5, 6 is when the whole Norris fax really got to be a thing and all that.
Was the thing when in the late 90s, 96, 97?
What's that?
Dial up. We had dial up, and then
dial up was back in the 80s.
not like it was as it got to the 90s, though.
Thank you, America Online, the CompuServe. Well, it was also a graphical thing too, and transmission. But the thing with Chuck that you mentioned, and it has to be stated that I think people are giving him grace on, is that he's one of the few people out there that you go, man, you could talk about like Tom Cruise might be weird with Scientology, or this person was this, then they found Christ or something, and people didn't, whatever. I've yet to almost not hear anybody say anything bad or negative about Chuck from a professional perspective. And here's a person that, not only served in war, he came across the United States, he brought something brand new that he compiled together. as far as his martial arts had, and he ran his own business. And I remember hearing an interview about him or reading one about where he talked about his films that, Steve McQueen was one of his students and and basically said, hey, you should try this or whatever. And Steve McQueen, some people think could never act or he was high all the time, which he was. He was a physical actor, and it's different than some other styles. But to have all these big, rich people that were successful in their own ways, regardless of whether they're stable mentally or not or whatever, once Chuck got into it, he always tried to, if you watch his films, and this is one of the themes of the extreme movie shows, that when we talk about films of the 70s, 80s, and 90s, or particular actors, we talk about not necessarily how good or how bad they were compared to others, but the progression of them, right? And Chuck was the kind of person that will sit there and say, yeah, I came off Breaker, probably wasn't very good. We even did Slaughter in San Francisco, where he's the bad guy, but he's not in there a lot. It's not really, he's just in it, right? He's got a great look. But you could see, if you go in order of his films, how they've basically got progressively just a bit better. As a teenager, I didn't really know much about Korea or Vietnam. I knew of it. I knew people around it. People took service to your country very seriously. And I just remember in the 80s, once Reagan got elected, there's this huge landslide in 84, that major disconnect between the government being the problem rather than the government representing, American people. And that's where Chuck, I think, kind of found himself because he said, there was a great quote that he just said that, hey, along my way, I kind of lost faith in God, but he never lost faith in me, and I found him again. So he was not afraid to wear his faith on his sleeve, but he's not the kind of guy that would be pushing your face if you're just talking to him.
He wasn't out there swearing. He wasn't out there, smoking or and doing that stuff, the vices stuff.
Right.
Like you see a lot of actors do. He is part of the old school kind of generation, kind of like where you were raised that, lead a healthy life, that praise to God, and it's all about family, pretty much, and paying it forward, your success.
Well, that's a good way of putting it, paying it forward.
Yeah, Chuck was a man's man, and what a man's definition was supposed to be, as far as that, you love your wife, you love your kids, and you just do help you help others if you can, and he said it's like, he was a patriot. Serving in the Air Force. Yeah, he served in the Air Force, and then in 58, joins the Air Force. And then in 62, he was discharged in the Air Force with the rank of Airman First Class. And then he applied to becoming a policeman in California. But then, he opened up a martial arts studio and began competing in tournaments. Mm-hmm. He lost his first 2 competitive bouts, to Joe Lewis and Alan Steen. Later on, he lost another 3 rounds to Tony Tuliners international championships. But he continued to prove, and he said he put everything into karate and stuff. And along the way, that when he was doing the champion stuff, he met Bruce Lee. They formed a relationship and training together and stuff. Mm-hmm. And like I said, like this just kind of helped get in his career into, like, after martial arts, he used it for acting.
Yeah, that's perfect thing. Absolutely for what his skill set.
But it said, like, and it's the thing, but you never saw him any scandals and stuff, because he wasn't that kind of person. And I think Hollywood could really learn from him. I mean, we have right now current role models we have right now. It would be Stallone.
Yeah, there's nobody young that I can think off the top of my head that's like it. I think that when he was starting to make films, he how do you say this? If you think about it, he got exposed to martial arts when he was in the military. So it's not like he was a genetic freak when he was 3 years old, a prodigy that all the eyes took upon him and dragged him aside, and he got specialized coaching and got a break of luck and all that. He made his way, and the self-made part to it, I think, is interesting because in America currently, things go through cycles as far as like politics and economies and all those kinds of stuff. But I think the human condition that sometimes I mentioned, like with Columbo, stuff that you see that are themes of some of the shows, the feminist part of some of the Columbo episodes, and some fitness stuff in there. Human performance from the 60s to 70s after World War II and Korea got to be a big thing. We had a nuclear family. People started figuring out how to get the best out of themselves in their life, right? So that's when the self-help thing really became mainstream, and then women saw it as an opportunity to go into the man's world and accomplish, and right, wrong, or whatever, or maybe you think what I'm saying is bullshit, but I think the idea of Chuck living that, and thinking about it, hey, what am I going to do? Well, let me do something dangerous and all that form of business. And then all of a sudden that opens doors. And it's not because he's trying to open doors. It's because he's busting his ass trying to be successful in a business.
Yeah.
And you can be, when you're really, really good at a sport, you're usually a really shitty coach because you have no appreciation for how difficult it is to acquire the skill acquisition to it and also get it out of somebody, communicate it, and all those soft skills that people shit on today and people don't have, whether it's selling or other things too. They partly because of our society now with the internet and everything, no socialization going on. Think about those things you said about the Chuck's 10 things are. Look for the success and happiness in others and take pride in that. It's not jealousy or envy. It's recognizing, hey, you worked hard and you achieved it. Good for you.
Having a code, which he learned from being in the military and stuff, and applying that to his life is what he was doing training and stuff. He was with his doing karate and stuff. There's a lot of guys who have codes, and sometimes we see in the sitcoms where they have the woman's like, "Oh, you and your codes." They try to shit on that, and it's like it's because people don't understand is if you have a code of honor or just a model to live by, like as for Christians have the Bible, a guide, how to live your life, and just be a good person. And, like I said, they don't understand it. So a lot of people will make fun of it. So, a lot of people didn't understand why he was a conservative and there's a lot of these people who are just lost in their life. They have no honor. They have no sense of morals. They have no God in their life. And they wonder why Chuck is the way he was. And then they'll make fun of his movies because that's the rational thing to do. If you don't understand something, the first thing to do is, well, hey, that's just dumb, ignorant people. And, Chuck Norris, I said, is one of those guys is that you'll never have another person like him in Hollywood.
Yeah, it's interesting because one of the questions I was going to ask you, and the reason why I was talking about the way America was and kind of how it has been, I think it's safe to say, and just if you understand it contextually with what I'm about to say, even if you disagree, I think you can follow the logic that the American family's been under attack for a couple of generations now. And conservative certainly doesn't mean you're Republican or Democrat. Things evolve. It has to do with your stance on certain principles. Being religious doesn't mean you're a bad person or everybody else is a heathen. It just depends on the religion and how it's practiced and stuff. And so the Bible itself is a set of rules for good living, whether or not you're Catholic, Protestant, this, that, or whatever you are. And that's kind of how it is. How do we get along? And with Chuck, the one thing I noticed as I can't help but think of the parallels between him and Arnold Schwarzenegger, because Arnold, larger than life physically, busted his ass. In many ways, what I loved about Arnold Schwarzenegger as a person was that he saw what you could accomplish in America. He saw that this is land that despite how bad some people think it is or how difficult it is or how you can fail and all that, it was still a place where positive can happen and you're guaranteed nothing. And he literally self-made. He came over, taught himself English. He took night classes for real estate. He did businesses. He did all sorts of stuff like that. And he ended up becoming a world champion, much like Chuck, right?
And you'll have people call it a fluke. Well, it doesn't happen anymore. It's like it's changed, America, blah, blah. It's like...
that's... it may be harder to do it, and I'm not going to say that it is or isn't. That's not what we're talking about. But the fact that in the 80s, and I cannot tell you, and I always stress this because sometimes you ask about it or we note stuff in the 80s, and the younger people that listen and talk, some of them are like, was it really like that in the 80s? Yes, I'm not saying it was easy. I'm not saying it was always fun. I'm not saying people didn't care about trying to make money and build a better future, but there was an optimism that, hey, I might have an opportunity to do it. And that's the thing in the 80s when you had basically Chuck Norris, you had Stallone, and you had Schwarzenegger doing it. They're very similar because, Stallone's the same way to me, he's the same as the other two in that regard. Self-made, wanting to do it. And I think that comes across in their films. And I will say this, the whole idea of the action movie to me in the United States, not Jackie Chan, not foreign films, the whole idea of not trying to fight, how to, do everything good, how violence is a last resort. It's kind of how it should be. And I love violence. I mean, red-blooded male doesn't? And Chuck's movies does it. And they might seem a little cheesy, a little B-rated, a little hokey. But when we watch them, a young kid can watch them, an older person can watch them. They don't have to be over the top like Arnold. And at the end of the day, as much as I love some of Arnold's stuff in his films, I still really like Chuck a lot. And I think without him, you don't have Everyone always likes to think it's Stallone and Schwarzenegger in the
Yeah.
80s, and they forget about Chuck. But without Chuck, I
So
don't think you have the other two.
so Chuck pretty much came out as conservative or outspoken in '84 after missing in action. He described himself as a conservative, a real flag waver, a big Ronald Reagan fan, like you said before. And then he talked about during the filming of Delta Force in '85, a year later, commented on the hijacking the TWA flight 847, arguing that the United States was becoming a paper tiger in the Middle East, warning that terrorism abroad would eventually reach North America. And then of course he cited the statements from the Libyan leader at the time, with Muammar Gaddafi, as evidence of the threat. And this guy, and then so in 2007, Chuck went to visit the Iraq, and then visit the U.S. troops, he drew attention because in 2008, the primates, because he supported Mike Huckabee's campaign in 2008.
Yep.
But then he went on to suggesting the eventual nominee John McCain was too old to handle the demands of the presidency. So I got some flack for that too.
But he wouldn't come out like fire and brimstone like a Trump or some other people. He had a way of saying it where you're like, Chuck, I'll listen to you because you're a respectful person.
So you know why a lot of people don't like him? Because he was the first celebrity to come out and support the California Proposition 8 banning same-sex marriage, and incited activists for not accepting the democratic process and the apparent double standard he perceived in criticizing the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints without criticizing African Americans, most of whom had voted for the measure. So he got a lot of stuff. He also when 2009 though, he expressed support for Barack Obama's citizenship conspiracy theories. So he was outspoken. He was the kind of guy. He refused to not say something he didn't believe was true. But he also, if somebody asked him to talk bad about somebody, that he knew it wasn't, gossip stuff, he wouldn't do that. But yeah, then 2012, he recommended Ron Paul, and then later endorsed Newt Gingrich. I was like Gingrich. I was like, dang. But
go ahead.
As I say that he was a very outspoken conservative since 1984, and a lot of people probably did not know that because now back then, sure. But unless you're following the news, political stuff, you probably don't know anything about Chuck unless you go read up about him. Most people today put their head in the sand and they go watch an actor, whatever, and then when that actor comes out and says something, what do you mean? I'm like, well, there's a lot of people who just found out today or yesterday that he was a conservative. They may have not known because it didn't bother him. And then you also got the people who were just born maybe like 12 years ago or even 20. And
hey, who's this old guy? Everybody,
about? Because
he's like stupid, man. He's no John Wick.
Yeah, that's the thing. They know John Wick, but they may not know who Rambo is. They might not know that who Steven Seagal is. And
in the 80s, though, there was I always paint it as like a tale of two cities here in a sense, where you have this optimism, you have a lot of really fantastical stuff in movies and television shows because people like a happy ending, even if it's saccharine, sugary. And then you had kind of this bitter leftover cynicism from the 70s. And it's interesting because most of what you call patriots are the people that like the military, and it was more the Democrats and liberals that were cynical about Vietnam and all that. Now it's kind of like, no, everybody's cynical of the government, or it's flipped, or whatever you want to think of it. And I think that it shows in some movies, and this whole Americanism, patriotism had its last really big, hey, it's cool to be American in the 80s, because it was not there in the 90s to me. And things changed. But with the thing with Chuck, even though he wrote a conservative column occasionally that would get published online in his views, there's fringe element out there going back to the 40s or 50s having to deal with a philosophical movement with libertarianism that had Ayn Rand writing it, the Fountainhead and all that, and it borders into psychology with Nathaniel Branden and a few others, and what's called biocentric therapy and all that. And not to get too deep in it, but the bottom line is it's kind of, whether you're Republican or Democrat, conservative, liberal, whatever the issue is, or that, or how technology changes, it makes you think of it. It's all about trying to be assertive about your life and live it on the terms that you want to. And so even though Schwarzenegger, who's by all means liberal, he's certainly not libertarian or conservative, he's still, identifies with the American dream of come over here, busting your ass, working really hard, not taking handouts, doing what you can do. And personally, things, people have affairs and have kids out of wedlock. Things happen, right? They do drugs, whatever. I don't really care what somebody does around time is not hurting somebody else. I don't care if they're smoking pot, doing drugs, but when it's game time, it's game time. You know what I'm saying? And Chuck is the kind of guy that in the 80s, you and I were reviewing Miami Vice. There's a little cynicism in there about how the bad guys are always going to win somehow, some way, and even though they capture him, there's always another one coming, right? It's kind of bitter that way, but it's sexy, right? But in the 90s with Chuck, I did not really watch Walker, Texas Ranger. My understanding is obviously he's older, he's in his 50s. It was a bit over wholesome show, but I heard that as he really found Christ even more, that the show became a lot more wholesome and Christian oriented, which of course drives everybody in Hollywood crazy, because to put on something like it or to not make fun of it, like All in the Family and other TV shows starting in the 60s and 70s did, that people hated it. But you know what? You put something out there you're committed to, no matter whether you think everybody's in it or not, it's going to attract a following. And he definitely did. I mean, that show ran a lot longer than I thought. I thought it was like 5 or 6 years. I guess it was like 8 or something.
He's one of only 3 Americans to achieve the 8th degree black belt status in Taekwondo.
He's the most accomplished martial artist.
He is.
It's not even close.
I
mean, go ahead and read it off.
Well, I don't have the list for that though, but he was born Carlos Ray Norris. Went by Chuck or Ground Chuck, like a lot of people did. For nicknames. He's only 5'10", born 1940, from Ryan, Oklahoma. Dang.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that's other thing trivia thing. But also I also see some list him as 5'8". That's probably as he got older.
5'10". That's 5'10" on a waking up, not having shrunk during the day and at your peak, really.
Yeah.
So it's probably 5'8", 5'9".
Yeah.
Very fit guy though. Very active.
Married Gina O'Kelly back in '98. They had 2 children. And just like that's the other thing too. Is like his son, I believe, was involved in martial arts stuff too.
Aaron Norris. Yeah.
Aaron Norris.
I think he wrote and directed some stuff.
Jean-Claude Van Damme's children are involved in his stuff, and then JCVD, his son, is actually doing another movie. Man, can you imagine if they had Aaron Norris and JCVD's son like in a movie together? Kind of crazy.
He trained JCVD for a year or two. JCVD came over supposedly as a kickboxer, which I hear conflicting things about. I heard he was and he's got a great physique, more of a bodybuilder type physique, right? But Chuck and him trained together for a while. So all roads lead to Chuck starting a karate thing. Now, I want to mention something that was here in chat there, where everyone kind of admits that they make fun of Seagal because he's an asshole and he's a jerk off and he's full of himself and all that. And he might have a great movie run there. Seagal was legit in his art and actually brought it over and opened up a studio and all that too. So it kind of follows the pattern that Chuck did. And I'll say this, for all the Bruce Lee fanatics out there, the guy was not a fighter. He was a martial artist. There's differences. Chuck was both. Bruce Lee would get his ass kicked. I'm not making fun of him and all that, but I've always thought that. But Bruce Lee, I think, had the biggest impact. 1, because he was foreign. 2, because it's West Coast, not East Coast, and those things matter when it comes to how people perceive those things. Left Coast has always been more progressive. And, of course, he died young. And, he died, whatever, and all that stuff, celebrity lifestyle. But he made martial arts cool, and I think he brought it to the 20th century. Chuck Norris, to me, is the one that said, hold my beer, Jackie Chan, everybody, this is what I'm going to do in America. Not that was his mindset, but he was going about doing his thing and found his way into film. And that's the difference between someone like Jackie Chan, who's born and raised in the communist country. Basically, you're sorted and filtered at a young age and said, you're going to do this or you'll die. And he's in the acrobat school or whatever it was that he learned all this stuff and then found his way into films and all that stuff. It's just a different mindset. And Chuck was very American about it. And he always had said that, you know what? I was always a patriot. I always grew up that way. And in the 80s, I got to tell you, there was this thing about ignoring, Vietnam, the POWs, the MIs and all that. And there were very few athletes and people out there that were supportive of them. And Chuck was not afraid to put that in, like the movies, like the Delta Force, or those things that we've talked about that I kind of didn't get the politics of it. But yeah, you're going to kill a bunch of fucking commies because they're bad guys, and you're going to save your brothers in arms that got left over there because of the government. Fuck them, and we're going to go do it. That's patriotic. And he did it solo. So here's the thing, RDV.
Yeah.
It's established that I'm not a big fan of a lot of the comic book films. And one of the reasons why is I don't like teams. Teams are interesting. Teams are cool.
It's funny you bring that up.
I value the individual, and that's been lost since the 80s.
It's funny you bring that up. I've always said I blame Josh Whedon for all that stuff. Team everything. Team Buffy. It started there. Then we had Firefly Team. And then we had all this show, every show after that. Angel had his own, the spinoff there.
Mhm.
You look at recently superhero shows. CW had the Flash, Team Flash. It's called the Flash, but he had to have a team.
Okay.
Arrow had to have a team.
Mhm.
Legends of Tomorrow was a team, show. I mean, it's just like everything had to have a team. It's like I like it when you just had one person, or if you do, like here, if you want to have a team, do like they do in Reacher, where occasionally that one season he teamed up with some people, but it's still Reacher's show,
Right. And that is an issue we've talked about with Reacher specifically, in my opinion. We may differ on that, but I think that's a good observation. The fact that you named some of the stuff that was really popular in the 90s, it's like, man, a light switch went off or something, and things totally shifted from the 80s mentality of the whole individual being responsible for dealing with the things that you're presented with in life, good and bad, and how to handle them and growing as results.
So
It's been
many
completely lost for over 30 years now.
Did you see all the living celebrities that came out? You had Stallone, you had Dan, I think it was even, I don't know if Danny DeVito did it, but I know that
Danny Trejo,
Christy Brinkley, who did the Chuck Norris Experience, whatever it's called, anything system, like they did that for all time, for all the years of commercials. So she talked and stuff. Everyone said that he was a nice man. They may not agree with him on politics, but he was a very respectable man.
He's an adult.
Yeah, that's the thing.
You look at him, he looks like a guy that would be living next to you. Maybe he's kind of fit, maybe he's not, but he's not. He's not the cartoonish thing that or Schwarzenegger that you go, man, I want a big motherfucker.
He always looked like the guy that would come into like the store and just buy some groceries or whatever and then leave, He wasn't like, pretty gaudy and stuff, but yeah, he was an average guy. He looked, and especially you see some of those photos of him in the 70s with that longer hair, like here.
But here he's fine. That's actual Superfoot Wallace there. And if you've ever watched any of his videos, that's actually him in it. So you wouldn't know that as a kid. You wouldn't know who Wallace is or Joe Louis. If you're into fighting and you're in all that, you might know it. I know a little bit of boxing from the 80s, but I'm not going to consider myself an expert. I mean, when you're the best of the best in your Chuck, what do? You don't. Here's what the best do. RDV, it sounds simple, but simple doesn't mean easy. You do lots of little things well, whether it's cooking, sports, whatever, and then that's it. There's no gimmick. There's no hack. There's no new way to hold the bar if you're trying to stimulate growth or hypertrophy or some new study that suggests this or some. That's all distractions and bullshit.
It reminds me of
hard work. A certain way that you can get better from and see that you're doing it. And that's Chuck proves it. So he's like, I don't know, 8th degree Taekwondo black belt. He's like a black belt in Chuck Sandu. He created his own. He did judo. He's a MMA guy. I mean, Chuck's one of the original.
One of the shows I've never watched was Texas Walker Ranger, or Walker Texas Ranger. Never got into it, but he had going back and looking at the people, the lineup that he had on there, the cast members stuff.
Phenomenal.
And then when I was on, you also had Sammo Hung had his own show too. You had stuff like Renegade going on in the early 90s.
That's right.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Lawrence alumnus.
Yeah, Lorenzo Alumnus, I said, and you had guest stars on there too. You had, people that appeared in his movies, appeared in his show. He had the same production crew. Yeah, here's some of the Octagon, 1980.
I love me some Octagon. Oh, who doesn't love him some Octagon?
Yeah. And then him and Michael Bolton. Look at those pants. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, close for a couple years there. Got mashed up like that. Wow.
I still see that the rabid Wolverine pants, kind of like we have those for the Badgers and for the Packers. Just like it looks weird. But here's the thing, though. I believe it was Chuck Norris that designed his own jeans.
He did. He had in the crotch a flexible piece. So here's the thing about jeans. Jeans back in the day might cost you $20, and they were 100% of a cotton that would not shrink. They would not fade, but they wouldn't stretch. So he put it in the crotch and when it was kicking that, I used to get like karate magazines and back in the day, and there's always like, there's always the 98-pound weakling getting, sand kicked in his face with the girl. And if you just bought the supplement from Joe White or whatever like that, you put on weight, beat up the bully. Well, that was all the magazines, right? Just like the Rick Barry, Dr. J. Spalding one. There's always one in the karate magazines of Chuck Norris with the action pants or whatever they were called with the crotch in there to allow them to do all that. That was like the big thing.
96. The first thing I popped in here when I first saw it here, I was behind him. I was like, "Oh my gosh, this is the 90s. Look at those cars."
Oh right, yeah, smaller little box here. Well, the other thing too is like, with jeans, to get kind of silly here. Now they have percentages of fabric material because people don't work out or they're fat, and they have skinny jeans because nobody has any shape anymore, and diets have sucked for a good generation or two now. So they make them form fitting. They aren't jeans back then were tough guys. Tough guys wore jeans. They wore jean jackets, and denim is never going to go away, I don't think. And Chuck, man, he was a denim king. He was a denim god.
Yep. And his 2 kids and his wife. Okay, out black and white photos. There you go. Here we go. There's the shorts. I was looking for this. The beard and everything. Oh my gosh. Well, the high waistbands on the jeans and stuff.
Well, no, but here's the thing: jeans fit around your navel and pants.
Yep.
Low rise and all that stuff, all the gangster stuff. And if you look at Chuck's shorts, those aren't short; those are almost to mid leg. Yeah. And also, I'm gonna tie all this together. You see his arm there. You see how it's just goes below where his shoulder, his coconut shoulder will end there, and the bicep starts.
Yep.
That's a fitted shirt, not fitted as in custom, but that's how it should fit.
No.
The bagginess came from the late '80s, early '90s.
Yes.
The whole urban thing with rap that made everything bigger and longer and draggier and poofer, which still remains today. And a lot of women wore one-piece outfits like those ladies there too.
Yep.
Now, and Kiana and all those workout places, oh hell no.
Yep.
God, you got so much damn hair, Chuck.
That's the collar. The collar gets me every time I see that.
Those hairy ass forearms. He was a hairy bastard.
Well,
just remember, body hair was cool in the '80s.
Yes. What you know what else I think of too? I think of Robin Williams with his hairy arms too.
Fuck, he was a hairy bastard too. Yeah.
There you go. The jump rope.
Before we got on, I was finishing watching up. I was making dinner, and I was sitting down. I was watching. I hadn't seen Lone Wolf McQuade in a long time. We'd re-reviewed it here 4 or 5, 6 years ago, right?
And at least 3 years ago.
Yeah, and so I put it on, and there's certain things that pop me, and there's like 3 scenes in particular. One is when he goes to his house after meeting Brawless Barbara Carrera, who's cleaning up his place and threw his beer out. And he's going through his trash, and she's like getting all pissy at him and all that. And he takes the beer out of the garbage, and he pops it and like fizzes more than it should. And he's trying to keep character, and that's the cut they went with. Lady, she goes everywhere. If I wanted a maid, I would have hired one or whatever. He says like that, and he throws it out. And then when we meet the bad guy, who of course is David Carradine from Kung Fu from the early '70s, which is actually a great martial arts show, The Philosophy of Not Fighting.
Is the bad guy at the end in the showdown in the town?
He's driving his bad guy car that we see him pull up during the bad drug deal or the weapons deal, right? I never saw this before, but it's got a license plate on it, and the license plate says karate. It gets out, but it's spelled not karate with a K, karate like K-A-R, car. I'm like, oh, how did I not see this in 50 years?
You say Lone Wolf McQuade. There's 2 scenes that stand out for me. One where for Barbara, where she's got the hose out there, and then the water's on mud.
They're making love.
Yeah, it's up. It's just
they're having a water fight.
And then the other scene, he's in the truck buried, cracks open a beer, and drives out.
Buried alive in his was a Dodge Ram Charger, supercharger,
whatever like that. Yeah, and then he drives it out.
He drinks the beer and like pours it over himself, and that allows him to like come back to life.
But I want to point out though, there aren't that many actors that have the eyes, crazy eyes. Like John Voight has it too. I've seen it with when he did Anaconda, like it's a crazy look. Chuck Norris gets that too.
The stare.
Yeah, the stare. The stare down. Mm-hmm. We joke about that in comic books where Batman has the back glare. He's the only one in like a comic book so he can glare at you, and you kind of like relax. You're like, okay, I'm done.
Right.
Yeah. So I always like that when we get that. Here's he go again. Kick to And you see the little Sportster back there, little Yamaha.
That's not Steve McQueen. Who I don't know.
No, I think I don't. sometimes they save, but sometimes they don't. That's why I kind of have it off.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was a weird note that freaked me out today about Chuck Norris, where it was a female
A Walker, yeah, it's a Walker.
musician, actress, or whatever like that. I forget who it is, and a buddy of mine texted it to me. And there's like a little anecdote in her like biography or something like that, where she goes, "Yeah, so basically, they wanted me to take acting lessons, so I signed up for it, and I guess I went to the Chuck Norris School of Acting." She goes, "No, seriously, I guess he just owned it or whatever." But the first day I'm there, he's sitting there watching, and I don't see him. The second day he comes in, he says,
Mm-hmm.
"I just think your eyes are a little too expressive. So what we're going to do is we're going to tape your, your eyebrows, so your eyes don't move, because if you're overacting, it looks fake in your forehead." And so now I'm watching all of Chuck Norris and everybody, and I'm seeing how much they move their eyebrows. I'm like, holy crap! Have you looked in the mirror, try talking and saying a line with emotion without moving your eyes because it's fake? It's like, oh my God, Chuck knows more than we do.
Right.
I just thought it was kind of funny. It's not Haley Duffy. It was somebody though. I just can't remember the name.
Hillary Duff.
No, but it's one of those kind of musicians, kind of actors or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, this is the one I was looking for. This photo here, his office back in the 70s or late 60s.
Look at the wood paneling.
Exactly.
I love it. And those
the drapes.
You could kill somebody with one of those typewriters. I geek out every time I see them.
They go office chair. You got the old typewriter there, the Brothers typewriter, IBM or what or something like that.
Electric, yeah.
Yeah. He has a case. He has a case. He put it in for that.
Who's checking for their stuff when they get on a plane? Not Chuck. Besides
this looks like if you went up to somebody's cabin, down Texas or something like that, and like they have this, and it's just like, and it just smells like the wood paneling and then the carpeting in there, and just.
Unfortunately, I think that's a popcorn ceiling, but who am I to judge?
Who cares? I'm looking at the curtains, the old school curtains.
Yeah, those will catch fire really quick.
And then look how just the balls on the bottom of the chair, the wheels.
But see, back then in the day, a man had an office if you were somebody,
and he's got his little like beer or coffee mug over there on the bottom, on the far right. He has all the pens in there.
Oh yeah.
The old school phone, the one when you could beat people to death with, the metal ones.
I miss those. Well, again, the design of your office and suits conveyed a sense of power because you're going into somebody's thing. And ever since the 80s and 90s, especially in education and sports, merit and the ability to project of competence has been devalued. It's all about the team efforts and who contributes and all that. And unfortunately, it really just doesn't work. One of the more interesting things about going in the 70s to 80s with the whole human movement thing is that the libertarianism thing kind of was off and on, and there was never quite a third party, but it kind of with Ross Perot almost became one, who was a self-made guy as well. But there's back in the 70s and 80s, you had, once we kind of started getting our economy going back again, you had like people like Milton Friedman that represent a certain type of capitalism, because there's different types, and people were like, hey, I like how these people are educating us on like PBS, believe it or not, of the different types of things that you could go see out there. And people would love to be educated. And now it's like, well, we don't have an office. We sit in a circle because nobody's above any other.
Is this?
And I always just sit there and say, if you're the one in charge of making decisions or you're going to get fired, you're the boss. You know what I'm saying?
Is this Florida? Something Jet Center? Shawnee's or Stanley's?
I can't read it, but probably because that's Don Johnson. Don Johnson was one of, remember the cigar boat? He actually races them and stuff like that. I think he still does. And he was doing it way back then. So this is probably Miami, Fort Lauderdale.
I want to say, because I'm looking at the trees behind there, because both Florida and California have palm trees, but they're different.
Correct.
Yeah.
Have you ever fought in a ring or worn gloves?
No.
Boxed or anything?
No.
Man,
I don't like to get hit.
Well, that's true. Once people get hit, it's totally different. Yeah, absolutely different.
Yeah. Here's him is with that's Randy Kocher. That's what Expendables 2.
Yeah, we know Arnie.
Yeah.
Look, I'll say this: without Chuck Norris, I don't think we have the other two. People might think Arnold's the bigger star. He might have been a bigger Hollywood star if you think in terms of star power. At the end of the day, I think Stallone's probably the best of all as far as being an artist. I think that this is one of those things where if you have to rank them, it comes to personal taste and it's hard to communicate. But Chuck Norris films and stuff like that to me have got undervalued over the years.
The way I think it goes for me personally would be without Bruce Lee, you wouldn't have Chuck Norris, you wouldn't have Jean-Claude Van Damme being inspired to come over.
Oh yeah,
you would you wouldn't have Seagal. Yeah. I think it starts with Bruce Lee because Bruce Lee on his Green Hornet becoming friends with him and then doing a movie his career takes over. He brings Chuck Norris into it. Chuck Norris gets a taste for doing acting.
He gets the rub. Yep.
And then this inspires more people to come over and start doing some more karate movies after seeing all the Cannon film success there.
Yeah.
You wouldn't have Dudikoff, It's just without Bruce Lee, you wouldn't have Cannon. You wouldn't have Chuck. And you wouldn't have Jean-Claude Van Damme, Seagal coming over. Probably not even. You probably wouldn't even have what's his name, Jackie Chan coming over, trying to come over and break out.
Well, guess what? We didn't have an American market for martial arts films.
No, we didn't.
So when Jackie Chan says, "Hey, I'm a big star here. Where else is there to be a big star? I got to go to America and make it." And he had to do it twice. And you're right, that would not have happened without Chuck.
So here's that scene.
Might have made it on his own. I don't know. Yeah, this is just when the soapy music's playing and all that too.
Yeah, but I was just like, even I'm like, yeah, that's a lot of mud.
It's part of her career, buddy. Come on.
I know.
You're not gonna get in the mud with her? Come on.
I'm like, let's not get in the mud. Let's go inside my his witch dryer. Yeah, there you go.
Lone Wolf Koi is just so badass. And if it wasn't for this role, do you have the Texas Rangers? Did you even know what a Ranger was until you think of Walker, Texas Ranger? Then you realize
I knew what Rangers were because I watched movies, Outlaw Josie Wales and stuff, and for all the Clint Eastwood movies. But I gotta say, because my top 5 or at least top 3 Chuck Norris movies change. Lone Wolf Koi definitely is my number 1.
Yep.
But I'm trying to think probably Delta Force.
Okay.
Would be my second, and third. It kind of fluctuates because I love the Octagon.
I love me some Octagon.
Yeah. But I also love the Fire one, Firewalker. I think it was. Yeah.
That's cute, but I look at it as like a buddy film, so I don't necessarily look at it as a Chuck Norris film. It is, but it isn't. Yeah, the one on the right there in the black, I'm wondering if she's the one female bodybuilder in one of the movies that we did. Because actually both of them look like they were in some of the Girls with Guns movies that we did. I just don't know.
Yeah.
Because they're weightlifters, you can tell from the breast going up to the shoulder.
Yeah. Ooh, look at the shoulder.
And the vein. Well, the other one
the
on the right is a lot leaner. Yeah.
So
the last thing I'll say about Chuck, he put into words what I've been saying for years, that I get frustrated sometimes with you or Pixel or other people when we're talking about action films like John Wick. I'm not saying what they did wasn't great, interesting, creative, and all that.
Yeah,
at the end of the day, a bit soulless, because Chuck says, I want to frame the action so the viewer can see what's going on and appreciate that. Not all these quick cuts and everything else there too, which is, again, we may have like John Wick, but how many times do I need to see somebody getting shot by a gun before loses its meaning?
Yeah.
But with Chuck, you would get a few things, then you get the big boss fight, and it meant something, and that's what you remember, and that's what you want.
You know what? I just remembered Invasion USA. The only Invasion USA would be number 4 because there's only one kick at the end. I had to wait the whole movie for a kick.
I still like Silent Rage.
Yeah. Silent Rage, the bar scene.
Good. Yeah, Forced Vengeance is we sleep on a lot. That's the rapey one, I believe.
Yeah. What is the one where he's driving the red car with the gloves?
I think that's Good Guys Wear Black.
It might be. There you go. Here's the jacket I was going to show you.
The Chuck.
The pop color again, everything. Oh.
Jesus Christ, Chuck. Yeah, Carradine was wearing a members only in Lone Wolf McQuaid. I noticed that right off the bat.
Yep.
But yeah, there's the eyes right there.
Yep.
What I want to see, and because it might be on a Walker Texas Ranger, you and I were talking about some of the 90s B-levels goodness, like Renegade and such. Forever Night, we're getting ready to do season 2 of. I could swear Cynthia Rothrock might have been on an episode of Walker Texas Ranger, because she's the best.
There's a lot of them that pop up on there. I was going through the
pop up on there.
I never got into it because it's a TV series. I like the movies and stuff. I'm like, yeah, I'm like, because here's the thing about TV shows. After a while, if you do a couple of seasons, you get the same plots over and over again.
Yeah. But it's Chuck Norris. And I had a buddy of mine living in Texas at the time, a lifelong buddy, a friend of mine. And he's like, I asked him about it, and he looked at me and he goes, I didn't watch it. He goes, but you did not say anything bad about Chuck Norris or Walker, Texas Ranger, anywhere in Texas, or you'd get your ass kicked.
Right.
With his wife and his new kids. Yep. Because he was there before. Yeah.
Yeah. Delta Force is, like I said, probably one of his best movies. Does the whole thing. Us versus the Middle Eastern country that's a terrorist.
Oh yeah. You fuck with America, you're gone, buddy. We'll send in Chuck Norris and everybody. This is a great fight scene in here where he's demonstrating for people. He's looking a little juicy there.
This is number 2, yeah. Delta Force again, with the Steve James.
Martial artist in his own right, I believe.
Yep. Agent USA with the shotgun. I still remember here's your grenade, hold this. or the truck. He's driving the truck on the mall. So
there's one line I think he uses in a few of the films. And it was in Louisville Crane too, where he almost get in a fight. His buddies getting picked on like that, and he just kind of like waves his hand in his face. He's like, "Come on, tough guy." And I'm like, "Oh, that's give it to me, Chuck."
Yeah.
Bob Barker was a big time martial artist, no joke.
Yeah, that's.
He was banging all them women on The Price is Right, and of course, they always wait till he dies to sue his estate. But
of course, Bob Barker. Everyone's gonna remember him as for The Price is Wrong, bitch. Happy Gilmore. And it's a kid from Star Wars and Jerry Maguire, little kid. Yeah, Haley Joel Osment, or Osment.
Oh, that's him.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I See Dead People. That's the little kid.
Yeah.
And then he did racing. He did speedboat racing. Yeah. The Brian Falcon. And then I forget what movie. Hold on. What movie is this?
This guy, I don't even know. I never knew this guy's name, but he was in a bunch of shit in the 80s and 70s.
Emmett Walsh. That's what it is.
Emmett Walsh. That's it. Yeah.
He's in so much stuff. He was in with was it Moore? I think it was, or was it Dalton? One of the Bond movies.
You're thinking of the guy that played Mitchell, the detective, Joe Don Baker, and he was in Bond movies. It's in the Pierce Brosnan Bond movies.
The guy was on vacation, yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, I think I've been Man the Golden Gun. So
no, that's a nobody.
Okay,
that's a nobody. Trust me, that's not Emmett Walsh. Yeah.
Yep, missing in action. Look at that, the precision kick and everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I love it.
See how flat the knuckles are there? Across.
Yep. I love this shot here where he's just walking down, and he's on Vietnam right over there. The Pepsi sign, Coke sign.
Here's my final thing on Chuck. I was a little sad, I admit it. I don't really try to put people on pedestals because when you meet them in real life, they're a human being. It's always your thought of who they are and stuff.
Sure.
So if you've ever had like a divorce or a breakup with a significant other or loss in your family, everybody's got tragedy, right? Part of it's what you put on the image of what you think it represents. And for me, I've always thought Chuck was kind of basic, kind of simple, but I'm really kind of saying here that's how it should be, and it's never a bad thing. And sometimes, like with Arnold being physically larger than life and his movies over the top and the idiotic violence and stuff in there, it's fun, it's entertaining, but it's not necessarily deep, and that's okay. Whereas with Chuck, I just think there's a bit more substance to what he did, even if some of his movies, like dealing with Vietnam, and were more a product of their time. Not everybody was doing it, and they just didn't do it to say, oh, we'll just make the commies the bad guys because we need a bad guy villain. It wasn't like that. I'm looking at you, Rocky 4 or whatever, which means it's bad. It's just a function of its time. But yeah, man, I wish more people experienced Chuck Norris. I mean, my God. Yeah. But anyway, we'll see what happens going forward with other people at the time and all that. That rule of three comes into play. Like, who's going to be next? Is it going to be Shatner?
Well, that's the thing. We still have John Voight. I think John Voight's next within the next 2 years.
Clint Eastwood's still alive, isn't he?
Clint Eastwood too.
Yeah, he's like 95, 100.
It's kind of like morbid. Like, I'm like, I've been looking forward to doing a Chuck Norris kind of like anything.
Yeah.
You know,
We were talking about, hey,
even
this is
Rip.
another Chuck Norris
Yeah.
movie.
But
Yeah.
I don't know. It sucks that he's dead, you know. But doing a Rip thing, and like, we've done a couple of them, but like, I think this is probably like my most entertaining one we've done because I know a lot more about the character and stuff, or not the character, but the actor and stuff. You know, and just reminds you that these guys are people you want to, if you want a role model, Chuck Norris is the role model.
Yeah. And honestly, you know, for the Extreme Movie Show, to kind of say that one of the reasons why I wanted to do this was just to have fun because it's easy to hate watch. It's easy to do what everybody else does. We
Yep.
do it unscripted, off the cuff, unrehearsed, live. So
Yep.
what mistakes and things we get wrong, it's all there. But what I like about it is it's real. It's reactive. It's, you know, comparing things about it. Plus, you know, as a teenager, I get to go, hey, am I just getting bitchy in my old age and whiny and all that? You know, were things really better when I was younger? What's good today? What's working? What's not? How does it relate? And now you just said something there pretty interesting about now that you've seen more of his films and it's been several years, you get like a new perspective on how he is. And in a way, I do too when I'm talking about you with movies that I don't fucking get what the big deal is. I asked you about the Green Lantern thing with what's his face.
It's very rare that you get an actor that is just as nice of a guy as he is on the movies and shows he does.
Right. Yeah.
You know, all around, like just a very respectful person. And like I said, you're not going to find another huge, probably as big as of a conservative, or not conservative, just basically a patriot in Hollywood. It's Chuck Norris. Yeah, alive today.
Yeah.
But that being said, though, we want to thank everybody who did stick around and basically hung out with us. Click like, subscribe, leave a comment down below. And Tuesday, I think we're going to do the last 3 episodes of the Madison.
Correct. For season 1, that'd be episodes 4,
season
5,
1.
6,
Yeah.
just dropped. Yep.
Yeah. So we'll look forward to that. They'll be at 8 p.m. Eastern on Tuesday, followed by Colombo at 9 p.m. Eastern
on Wednesday.
And then next Sunday, we'll be back to Miami Vice for episode 6, I believe.
Correct. Yeah. Thanks, everybody, for listening. All the comments on there, too. Let us know anything about Chuck or anything you'd like us to review in the future. We're not done with Chuck Norris. He is the patron saint.
Definitely. If you guys are a favorite Chuck Norris, you know, leave your top Chuck Norris movies, you know, your order, your list down below in the comment section. And we'll see you guys on Tuesday.
Good night now.
Later, guys.